What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops Crew, and today I'm talking about something that honestly I wasn't sure when I'd be kind of revisiting this conversation. It's about AFL video games. This is a pet topic of mine because, as many of you know, outside of doing Hoops Crew stuff and outside of my full time as a teacher, I've been working in the video games media for more than 10 years now. And as a result, I kind of know a fair bit about the whole space. I'm pretty well connected. Honestly, there is no better person in this footy landscape to talk about AFL 26 than yours truly. So let's get into it because there's been a pretty handy bit of news that's popped up over the course of today. It might have been live for a few days now, but it's only been discovered today. And I went trawling through the internet myself and to double check that it is in fact legitimate. And what you can see here on the Australian Classifications Board is that AFL 26, the latest game from Big Ant Studios, is real. And presumably it's coming soon. Now we'll talk about the ins and outs and what we can glean from this classification and all of those kinds of important details in a moment after a word from our sponsor.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist. Visit them at shop 12 11 Leather Street in Breakwater. Phone them on 035 222 2244 or visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au and use the offer code GOCATS in the voucher field at checkout to get 20% off your next online purchase.
Thank you, Cyril Cook Florist, as always, for your ongoing support of the Hoops Crew and all we get up to. Now, let's talk about AFL 26 and what we can take from this listing and what it means for the game to be listed in the first place. But let's begin by looking at the listing itself. You can see it's got an M rating, chance-based, and in-game purchases and online interactivity and chat. That will basically be like Pro Team and some of the VC style systems that the AFL teams employ. VC being the virtual currency that you see in the likes of NBA 2K, things like FIFA, etc. You can see the classification date here, the 13th of February 2025. That's a couple months ago, and I've looked at the classifications board since that date prior to this one, and I did see AFL there. It was listed as AFL 23, so they've clearly updated the listing now. I guess they're at a point where they're pretty close to announce, but we'll talk about that in a moment as well. You can see through the listing here, themes, moderate impact, that's what's prompted the M. Violence, very mild. Language, drug use, nudity, sex, for obvious reasons, no. So what can we take from this and why is it rated M? As the initial listing kind of highlights here, chance-based and in-game purchases and online interactivity and chat. As soon as there's kind of a transactional component to online, for the Australian Classifications Board these days, that causes the rating to start to skyrocket. Now, of course, there's opportunities for chat and those sort of things and inappropriate behaviors there. And that may be more likely to prompt a PG rating in a lot of circles. But the fact that there's kind of a gambling component that comes with Pro Team and those sorts of systems, that is what sets off the alarm bells for those governing bodies, and hence why the game has been rated M. I don't think that's really going to put any families off because they see an AFL game and they kind of know what to expect from an AFL football game. We're not talking about violence in the traditional video game sense. We're talking about, it's a combat, like a physical combative contact sport and such. There's going to be injuries and those sorts of things. And I guess as soon as you depict those paired with the gambling components, there's your M rating. So in terms of what else we can take from this, really now we start to think about, okay, what's the release date for this game? When are we going to see more? History says, and not just from the Australians ratings board, but other ratings boards around the world. And sorry, I dive into these fairly regularly because I'm looking at listings for all sorts of games that are absolutely not sporting related, I might add. And they get recorded all the time, and that sometimes tips the hand of games that haven't yet been announced. Often these are games that have well and truly been announced, and the fact that they then start getting ratings in Australia and Taiwan and other places around the world start to indicate that, okay, this game's pretty close. As soon as teams get to a point where they're submitting to ratings boards, that is usually a cue that release is pretty close. I would say, though, when it comes to something like AFL 26, there is probably a 50-50 chance that this game is 2 to 3 months away and also 12 months away, simply because when it comes to a lot of ratings boards, and I'm not saying all, but a lot of ratings boards, you tend to just send the game through with some vertical slices of here's the things we're talking about and why we believe this game is rated M. It's not actually the ratings board that goes M, PG, R, whatever it happens to be. It's often the developer or the publisher that sends that game through and says, this game based on X, Y, Z, and here's some examples, will be rated an M. And it's basically a trust-based system, because as soon as you breach that trust, as soon as you've provided misleading information, and in the video game world, I think about, well, it's not necessarily misleading, but I think about games that have been rated MA versus games that were rated R, and before we had an R system, games that got banned. I think about Fallout, for example, and how you used like stims, but they were like drug, they were injections. You were shooting up essentially and increasing your health or recovering your health, and the game didn't like that because it was kind of in the ratings board. Sorry, it was like they deemed that we were celebrating taking drugs, and so they gave it an R rating, as opposed to the MA, which Bethesda was pitching at that particular time. And so you get these sorts of differences from time to time, but when it comes to a sports game, it's pretty clear cut. So in the case of AFL 26, you can send through that rating. We anticipate based on this, it's going to be rated M. Ratings board goes, great, no worries, we'll list it as an M. And then if something else comes along that makes them think, oh, hang on, this should have been an MA, well, we've got a problem. They're not going to be too concerned if you rate it an M and it's actually probably more of a PG game, because it's better over than under, right? So there's a chance that this game could be out in the next 2 to 3 months, maybe in line to release before the finals. But there's also a chance, and I think about what happened with the last game, AFL 23, and how that was planned to release in time for finals, and then it delayed into the following year. And then there was issues with the Xbox SKU. There was a launch party, and then the game didn't come out right away. Like it was a bit of a mess. What played out in that particular scenario, and I've spoken to Ross and the team at Big Ant, and there was lots of headaches that they didn't anticipate, and that kind of caused some problems. A lot of that, I'd imagine, they've learnt from this time around. But I just wouldn't take it to the bank that this game's going to come out in the next 2 to 3 months. There's a good chance that it will. I said 50-50, but if I was to put money on it, and I'm not a gambling man, as many of you know, if I was to put money on it, I'd be saying that it's out in the next 2 to 3 months, simply because a lot of these systems, whether it's Pro Team, the base modes, all those sorts of things, they're already good to go. They've already worked out what does and doesn't work about those from AFL 23, and they've been able to spend the last couple of years refining, polishing, improving, getting them next gen ready, all of those sorts of facets of the game. That will have been the large focus of the last few years. And as they've improved Pro Team and everything else for AFL 23, they've been able to essentially drag and drop for AFL 26 with updated team lists, etc., etc. All the quality of life improvements that you get from an NBA 2K24 to an NBA 2K25, an EA Sports 23 to EA Sports 24 sort of model. So, yeah, it could come out in the next 2 to 3 months. I feel like that is maybe slightly more likely, but I also wouldn't be surprised if we don't see it for another 12 months. The rating being listed in this case, I don't think tells us a hell of a lot in that regard. Those are my thoughts on AFL 26, its existence. We know for sure that it's a thing now. When is it coming? We don't know. When can we expect more? Probably not too far from now, considering this has popped up. Certainly, I'll be looking to reach out to Ross. He's been a friend of mine for many years. We've spoken about a range of different things, both AFL related, cricket video game related, and just broader video game related. He's been on a lot of my shows and a lot of my content over the years. And I'm looking forward to maybe having a chat to him again in the lead up to AFL 26. So if I hear more, stay tuned. This will be the best place to go and catch that content. Until next time, though, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. We've got lots of content relating to AFL games, to relating, of course, to match previews, reviews. We've got the Chat to Chat Cats. We've got Post-Game Live, the Paul James Show. Lots of content that is live and exclusive to the Hoops Crew. So go check that out as well. Subscribe to our Patreon. You can get a 7-day free trial access period where you get everything that we offer there. That is the extended content, the early access content, and the exclusives, all delivered to your email inbox. And if you're liking that, stick around. $5 or $6 a month is what gets you that content continually sent directly to your inbox. In terms of socials, you'll find me at Paul James Games, the Hoops Crew at the Hoops Crew. And until next time, remain Geelong strong. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. I'm looking forward to AFL 26. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you later.